Okay, we've established our centre of rotation and we've got a very, very simplistic view of how this rotates. So as the boomerang's travelling through the air, it's doing this relative to the assuming still air, relative to that tip. This leading edge is hitting the air, it's going over that curve, it's creating lift, and so is this edge, and so on, and it's creating lift and it's pulling it inwards in towards the centre of its flight circle. But that's not why a boomerang turns. It's not the only reason why a boomerang turns. It's not all about lift. It gets a lot more complicated than that. As it zooms along, it doesn't act like a propeller. It might look like a propeller. One like that looks like a propeller, but it doesn't act like a propeller through the sky because you've got a thing called gyroscopic precession, and that is an object that is spinning like that wants to turn from the horizontal, from the vertical to the horizontal. So it does that in its flight. So it starts curling around, all right, and then it does what we call in boomerangology circles, lays down, and comes back towards the end of its flight. It comes back in a nice hover and you can catch it. So gyroscopic action, or gyroscopic precession as it's called, in the flight is probably best demonstrated by using a bicycle tyre about an axis here. I can't show you how this feels, obviously, but as I spin something, I get resistance to it trying to change its axis. If you ever do this when you've got a bicycle tyre and you've got a spindle, you can actually feel, the heavier that is, the more that gyroscopic action is going to want to pull from the horizontal, from the vertical into the horizontal. Okay, so that's, if you're teaching, that's a good way to demonstrate it to kids, because you can hand something like this around and you can get them feeling it. Okay, and the faster it's flowing, the stronger that force. You get them to hold onto it and they go, oh yeah, that's what it's about. Here's the mind-bending bit, so I'll have to put my glasses on and make me look intelligent. Okay, as our boomerang travels along, you've got gyroscopic precession happening, which happens with propellers and fans and all that kind of thing. It's forces operating on it, but because it's not fixed to an axis, it's going to start to obey that more than something that's being resisted. The next thing we've got to consider is our airflow at the top of the rotation. As these come across the top, they are travelling at a different airspeed to when that same surface is travelling at the bottom. Now, why would you think that would be the case? Right, because here it all appears like I've got the same airspeed, I've got the same rotation, I've got the same airspeed top and bottom. It doesn't matter, does it? But the boomerang isn't spinning on the spot, moving along. Just like a ball rolling across the ground, the bottom of that ball is, if it's going relative to the ground in a 1-to-1 ratio, it's just rolling along the ground, it's not skidding. Okay, you've got a 1-to-1 ratio when that arm is at the bottom than it is at the top. So for part of that cycle, it's not really having an effect. Now again, it's complicated by the fact that we don't put the amount of spin on the boomerang exactly the same as the speed as if it were rolling across the ground. Okay, it's been worked out by a physicist whose name escapes me at the moment, to be around 84-85%. From his test data, you can get an 84 to 85% amount of spin on your throw as you can relative to your ground speed. Okay, so that's going to affect things. So sometimes when you go back to your profile, you might want to work on a long arm, short arm design. You find one. Okay, this is a bigger version of the Little Ripper. Okay, so that's got a short arm design. This has got a swept back lift arm. This is called the dingle arm. This is called the lift arm. And that gives you a different effect on that airfoil than it does on that airfoil. The profile, the shape of your boomerang has a quite marked effect on how the boomerang performs through the air. If you look at it from above, we'll draw a plan view of a boomerang. There's your thrower. You're throwing it, here's your oncoming wind. You're throwing it roughly 45 degrees to 90 degrees for a right-hander to the right of the oncoming wind, and it should come back something like that. This is how my Little Rippers tend to go. They tend to do a nice arc around and they have a nice straight return to you. Okay, in still air, you should still be able to achieve that, but you have to throw it harder and give it more spin, and it sort of comes back more and then goes into a hover round about there. Okay, and the way I've achieved that is by using a long arm, short arm approach, but changing the angle of this dingle arm to have it hook around a little bit. Now, I've heard some people say that the shape of a boomerang, if you lay it down in front of you, you will get close to that shape in the flight pattern. And in some ways that's quite true. A boomerang like that with two outswept arms will tend to have a flight pattern that goes out and around, right, and then comes back and then out sweeps on the return, which isn't all that desirable in a lot of cases. It quite often climbs quite high at this point, and it lands normally to the left of the thrower. Or if you overthrow it or give it a lot of spin or a lot of power, it'll do a figure eight. Some people like that, competitors don't. Okay, so that's why, for consistency, the Little Ripper and the Cracker have a hooked in arm to get that flight characteristic on the end of the flight. Don't ask me to explain the physics on that. I've got no idea.